Patrick King, the drum tech for fucking Lamb of God.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of you for a minute, but I mean, I would imagine touring with Lamb of God is very fucking busy and tiresome.
Yeah, it does get quite busy. We are actually just set up to, or excuse me, we just got through doing our gear prep, and we're about to head to Las Vegas for Sick New World, and then we have a headline show out there as well at the House of Blues, and then off to Jakarta, Indonesia for one show, and then come right back, and then be ready for the tour coming up with Mastodon.
Nice. I've been to Jakarta. I think the last time I went there was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Was the last time I went to Jakarta. Beautiful, and then not so beautiful. It depends on where you are. You know, it's
Yeah.
one of those types. You know, you can
Yeah.
definitely tell the gap.
Oh
the
yeah,
poverty gap.
definitely. It's weird. It's like you'll be cruising around and seeing some really beautiful like countryside areas, and then all of a sudden you're in like shanty town, and then you go into like really nice hotels. It's like what the? It's weirdly set up. I'm sure it's just a densely populated area, and that's just the way it happens sometimes. But yeah, it's a trip getting over there. So we'll see what happens. That long ass plane ride.
Long ass plane ride is definitely an understatement. Do you guys stop in like Tokyo or anything for a layover? I know I had to stop in Tokyo for a layover.
Yeah, well, I'm
there.
sure that's what'll happen. We'll get on a plane, probably LAX somewhere, and then end up over there at Tokyo as the halfway, the point to stop at for the layover or whatever, and then off to Jakarta from there.
Nice. So, you guys have played on cruise ships and whatnot. How is that for you as a drum tech to try and navigate, the waves and try to keep everything where it should be?
Where it should be. Well, the good thing is for me at least, where I get to set up is right on the pivot point. So I'm set up right in the center of the ship, either on the deck or if you're in the theater, that one's a little bit tougher because you're at the bow of the ship. And things can get rough sometimes, and you just kind of have to adapt. So you can just get used to it, and you're fine. The only time I think I've ever had a hard time with that was when I did that with Hell Yeah way back when, and we were in the theater coming back from the trip, because when you're going down there, they kind of take their time with it. It's slower paced, take the time to sail to wherever you're going. And the seas aren't as rough. When you're coming back, they're pretty much hauling ass to get back to port. So every time, you're hitting waves and you're in the theater, like I said, you're at the bow, you're just hearing, and everything's rocking. Chandeliers in the ceiling are doing that number, and you're just like, whoa, it's crazy. But it's fun. It's definitely fun.
Oh, dude, I can imagine. I used to go on cruise ships when I was a teenager with my family and whatnot, but it's a whole different beast when you're trying to, manage instruments and whatnot too.
Yeah.
Because there's so much. Drum kits especially are so expensive. So I can't even imagine. And then trying to make it to where it's not just a giant cacophony of sound.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's tough to do, especially like I say, those deck stages, because you got to worry about, there's like this last one that we did on Headbanger's Boat. There was a lot of wind, both performances that we did. And, not just for the musicians themselves, the poor lighting guys that are doing like, between their lighting cues and the cryo cues, which you hit cryo out there on that deck and just and gone, So that can be difficult. For me, it's all right, because at least like say Art's setup is so heavy, just with the rack system that I use and everything else, that kind of allows me to do a little bit more, do a little bit extra. But yeah, it's surprising how well those things, everything holds up on those stages. I've been quite surprised and thrilled. I'm glad it's never been one of those situations you see where the ship's bobbing and like all the furniture sliding sideways or nothing like that. That could be rough.
Well, I mean, at least you weren't on the ship that what was it? What? Fuck, it was recently too. The ship that fucking ended up hitting the port.
Oh yeah, that was shipwrecked. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a part of that? I don't think you guys were a part
Not
of that.
this one. No. But our production manager is he's done those cruises on the managerial side of things for years. So I forgot where we were at the moment, but we're like in transit somewhere, and then he got that message from his friends that still work on the ship about what had happened, and he was sending me pictures like in real time of all that stuff, and I'm like, oh man, that's some scary stuff. To see pivot holes in a ship, it's like, no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, that'd be fucking terrifying. Just either way, man. Like, nope, nope. I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
drunk enough for this. I am
yeah.
not drunk enough for this yet.
Very, very, very true. Yeah, that's hard to do when you're sober.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the funny thing about it is, I think a lot of people didn't realize the severity of the damage at
Yeah,
first
yeah,
until they saw it, and then like, oh, I don't know if I want to go back on there
yeah,
now.
yeah. I'd have been like, yeah, I'm cool. Just leave me right here in Jamaica or wherever we're at. I'll get another ride. We're good.
I'll fly something, nope, I'm good. I don't want a repeat of the Titanic. I'm
No,
good.
no, no, no. I need no part of that. The
No.
only downside to ours, we did have somebody that decided to do a header on the day that we were headed back, or the night before we were that day, and for whatever their reasoning, decided to up and leave the ship from a very high point, and we spent the next like 9 hours or so just doing like a big circle, you know, looking for them, and searchlights on, and lighting buoys ejected from the ship to navigate the area, and Coast Guard had flyovers, during the daylight hours that I remember. I don't know what time they got out there, but I'd fallen asleep at some point. But yeah, it was a mess. But everybody's not everybody's going to do that, but there's some people will just bring on their own personal bullshit, and then they can't hack whatever that is, and they decide to make a point that way, which is terrible. I feel for the families and the friends of that person. Just for anybody that's listening to this or watching this that's going to go on to do Headbangers But This next go around, cut that shit out.
I
Don't do it
mean,
again.
music is supposed to be a way for us to release all that shit.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
that's it's now I'm not gonna say, like if someone writes you and you made like a killer song and they're like, your song saved my life, you saved my life.
yeah,
Nah, I don't want any part of that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
write music that I like, that I feel, and if it
Hmm.
helps you, cool. But don't come to me for therapy and shit.
Yeah.
Don't do that, man. I'm just as fucked up as you are. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I like that. Yeah, I
you
agree.
know,
I know what you mean.
and it was my buddy Jimmy Trigger who really put that into perspective. I was like, you're fucking right, man. Like you're really right, because you have like those emo bands and you have like those other bands that are like singing about pain and loss and heartbreak, and some people are like, oh my god, I love you, I feel it, and you're like, no, 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 I wrote this for me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
cool that you like it. Thank you for buying my music and listening to it. But I'm not going to be your therapist. I'm not going to tell you how to save your own life, dude. You need
yeah,
to go
yeah.
to
No,
therapy for that shit.
yeah. If the
You
lyrics
know,
help and the message helps and the tone of the music helps, that's fantastic. And more power to them that the people get that from that. And it's wonderful to hear that as an artist, to think that hey, something I did helped somebody. That's great, but that's kind of where, no offense to anybody, that's kind of where it stops. It's like, I can't do anything for you past that, because it's like, I'm just not a paid therapist. And yeah, have you seen me? I haven't. No, I wouldn't take advice from me at all.
I think the first time I hit you up, you're like, let me get back to you when I'm sober. I was like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
that
I
is
did.
definitely fair. I
Yeah, I
mean,
was I was lit when you hit me up that first time.
oh, dude,
I was having fun.
that's part of, that's part of doing what we do, though. And what people don't understand is to work in the music industry, touring and everything is extremely
Mhm.
fucking stressful,
Yep,
and sometimes we need to have our own escape,
yep,
doing whatever. Now, I'm not condoning hard drug use or anything, anybody, but sometimes you need an escape because it's the constant grind. It's the sleepless nights. It's the going from point A to point B and only having this much time to get there, then load in, load out. It's a pain in the ass.
yeah, it is.
Sound check being, in the wee early morning hours and shit. You don't
Hmm.
leave a venue until like 2 in the morning. You have to be somewhere else by like, 9 a.m. the next place. You're on the other side of the fucking country.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And it's like you said, everybody needs their form of escape. for a lot of people, even the people that have gone the sober route, they find other means through maybe even some other art form. Maybe their thing is movies and they watch movies, or talk to someone back home, or they've got, books or whatever that is that they read, or they're into Zen or whatever that they do. And then there's others of us that like a different route, and it's easier to just enjoy the moment. It's not even so much of an escape as it is just enjoying the moment and having that drink at the end of your stressful day, like other people do. Come home, kick your shoe off, take your bra off, fling it across the room, whatever. And for us, that's that, so we enjoy that beer or that whiskey or the shot of whatever. To do that and enjoy it, it's kind of just another form of, it's our therapy, just to kind of chill and take the edge off the day.
Oh man, I can definitely agree with that. Aaron, I just recently interviewed him. The guitar tech for was guitar tech for Five Finger Death Punch for a while.
Yep.
They went on to do Stevie Wonder. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, man, I watch Evil Dead. Like, that's my thing. Like, I do not go on a tour without the Evil Dead. And I have like 5 copies at home. And then he went and made a guitar, with Ash on and everything. I was like, dude, that's so fucking cool. The Necronomicon guitar. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, that one's crazy.
Dude, it is. Like, and, all of you, I've discovered that, the tech world is very, very tight-knit.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows everybody.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that before I started doing the interviews and stuff, because I've only worked on, like, the manager side, with I don't want to say mid-card bands, but bands that haven't really made it up there yet. They're working on it. But I've been to like Louder Than Life. I've been backstage for, all that shit. So I've just kind of spoken to everybody.
Yeah.
And my whole thing behind doing what I'm doing now is, the techs never really get the spotlight. No one really knows what you guys go through to put on the shows. Everyone sees the band. They're the face. They're the band.
Yeah, of course.
But what about the guys who put on the show? They couldn't put on a show without y'all, you know? Like, so that's why I wanted to interview you, because you work with one of the largest metal bands in the world. Everyone knows who Lamb of God is. Right. Everybody. And, I know that you have some wild ass stories about your time with those guys. See, the laugh right there says it all.
Yeah.
So, what's one of the nightmares you've had, like on tour, like one of those nightmare scenarios that have happened to you?
Oh man. With Lamb, there was one, it was like an equipment failure that had happened, like with like Art doesn't use, like, you'll see triggers on the kit, but the triggers are just for gates. So it's like for, front of house. So they can, the drum hit, be it hard strong or super light, whatever it is, whatever he's playing, you're going to get that. You're going to hear that. So you're not going to miss anything that the mic may have not have picked up. The only thing he's got any kind of sound attributed to is the kicks. And I figure if one of those gates goes down, I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it. It'll be fine. But if the kick thing went down and I didn't have a backup for it in that moment, it just all of a sudden you lost the main kick. And I'm just like, oh shit. So I go over there to switch one thing out, and I've got somebody in my ear yelling one thing, somebody else on the side yelling something else, Art looking at me to say something else, and I'm like trying to get it all going and everything. I'm just like, what the hell? And I just kind of, in my head, just kind of went, shut the hell up. And I just zoned everybody out and fixed it and got it going, and everything was fine. But it was just like one of those things where it's like, as soon as it happens, you're like, usually if a mistake like that happens, you just go, oh fuck, okay, well, here, click, this works, and that's fine. We were just in a situation where I couldn't avoid what was happening or how it happened, and it just required a little bit more time. And it's just only a couple of seconds, but those couple of seconds feel like, hours when you're in that moment, and you're just like, oh fuck, I gotta fix this. Yeah. And like I said, with everybody else screaming in your ears, that was kind of a nightmare moment on stage wise for that. I've had other situations that were nightmare scenarios with other bands where anything from somebody getting on stage that shouldn't, and you have to take care of that problem, and That doesn't happen much anymore, thank God, but we're always on the lookout just in case. You know, a lot of bands, they agree to that. They like it. They don't mind it. The bands I've worked for don't want it. You know, they don't want that person on stage. So you have to remove them accordingly, sometimes forcefully, but not say closed fisted. You don't want to do it because you might be looking at a weapon. You got to take care of every little scenario that might happen in a blink of an eye. And those are some of the worst things that I've had to deal with. Uh, I won't say I didn't get any enjoyment out of removing a few people that were a little overly aggressive. That was fun, but it does happen. That was fun. But yeah, those are some of the bigger things. The worst thing that ever happened was I was working with Hell Yeah, and we were in Europe, and we had gotten to the venue, this stadium in Munich, and we're trying to get to where we're supposed to be parked. Somebody sends us over to another spot. Somebody's like, "No, you're supposed to be over here." I'm like, okay, well, this is bullshit. That's how the day was going to start. We're like, whatever. Well, we start getting some gear unloaded because there's supposed to be a truck coming for a cross load to go into the stadium. So we're getting all that done, and then they're like, we're like, "Where's this truck?" So me and my buddy Marcus go around to inside. We're like, "This truck's supposed to be here." Like, "Oh yes, we send them now. We send them now." They show up late. We're like, "Man, what the hell?" And we get over there. We tell the stage manager, we're like, "Hey man, we got like 40 minutes before we're on stage. We need to get all this stuff up there." And there's two trucks taking up the spots for us to get our stuff up there. And so they're like, "No, you have 20 minutes." And we're like, "What the hell?" So we just parked that truck where it was and deadlifted everything up to the top of the deck and got everything up there, got everything ready to go. And we're, you know, like I was so far behind that Vinny's with me, like putting stuff together on the kit, and we're getting everything done, get it ready to go, get on stage for set change. And then we know we've got only like 6 songs to do because it's a festival setup, you know. Um, all of a sudden, like we were talking to the kid that was doing our front of house for us at the time. We're like, "Hey man, what's going on? We need to get the monitors. Check this one, check that one." And every time that he would hit something, it would come up somewhere else. We're like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he's out there freaking out. "Man, I don't know what's going on. They switched my stuff around, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Okay, for one, breathe, calm down." I look up at Marcus, and Marcus just goes, "5." So we cut one song. Damn it. So we're like hauling us, like, "Okay, Chris, what's going on, man? We got to figure this shit out." And he's trying to get it all done, and he's trying to figure it out. And it's taking him way too much time. Marcus does this number. He's like, 4. I'm like, "God damn it." So, all right. So we're hauling us, still trying to get everything done. It goes down to 3. I look over the band side stage. They're like, "What the hell's going on, man?" I'm like, "We're trying to get him figured out. As soon as he figures out what he's doing, we're good to go." Well, we ended up we got down to 2 songs. And then Marcus or Vinny just threw his sticks in the air. He walked off. The band walked off, and Marcus did the cut thing. We're like, we had to push everything off. We ended up getting booed off stage by like whatever it was, 40,000 people. But it was like crazy the amount of the that type of situation where you go into it feeling comfortable enough that yeah, we're going to go into this. We'll slay it, and then every little thing worked against you to make that happen. That being said, there were other days where something would happen, a bus would break down. We're just like, "Let's go." And we did one in San Antonio where we had to run down there, haul ass, get things done, and we had to be on stage quick because we were already like 3 hours behind on transit. Finally got that done. From the time the truck door went up to the time we were on stage and the band hit downbeat, it was 26 minutes. And we had to assemble everything. So it was like just hauling ass. It was crazy, but it worked. We got it done, and even out of that nightmare came a really great show, and it was fun.
I find that it's usually through adversity that some of the best shows actually, are put on because, it's like at that point you're just so pissed off and you just want to go out on stage and just tear shit up.
Oh yeah,
just tear it up. I definitely feel that mechanical failures and things like that just sound terrible. It reminds me of the time Aaron was telling me about how he was what was it? He was was it scooping the funk? Is that what he said it was? Something like that. It's the Jackson 5 were on stage. Something happened with a battery pack, and he had to fucking dance behind them while they were doing their thing. And here's this white guy dancing behind, all tatted up with the Jackson 5 dancing behind him,
Oh
fucking
man.
trying to change out the battery pack so there's not a missed fucking beat. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's like, I got yelled at by the manager, and how dare you do that shit? But then they came back like, hey man, you need to do that with us every show. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
that would be terrifying.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
it's the
would be
Jackson
terrifying.
5, dude. Like, everyone knows them. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it was for Michael's 50th anniversary show or something. So, like Lionel Richie was there. Everybody was there. Like, dude, that would have been the most terrifying thing for me, like, ever.
That would be terrifying, especially with somebody that high profile, and you're having to like rock with them behind it and everything.
Yeah,
you're like
exactly.
trying to adjust that.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to do it, say for like Art, if something happens with his pack and I have to switch it out. I can't imagine doing that behind one of those guys. It's like you're behind Tito and you're trying to make sure everything's working right. That's terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would have been, oh, dude, I would have been scared out of my wits.
Oh, absolutely.
But those are one of those times where you have to be zoned in. You can't allow outside factors to factor into how you're doing your job. You were talking about earlier about people jumping on stage. It was the night before I did my first ever shoot with Ginger. It was Ginger, Suicide Silence, and All Hail the Yeti. It was during that tour. So a couple years ago.
Yep.
I was in Orlando. Tom said that some dude broke into Tati's dressing room.
Oh man.
And so Tom Reardon was like, I gotta go tackle this fucker. So him and a few other techs were there and tackled the guy before security ever got there. And I was like, yeah. So y'all still get the crazy fuckers every now and again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they show up for sure. I've had them to where it's like, even like you're in a venue, everything's fine the whole show, and then the band goes to do the photo with the audience, or that kind of thing, and then some jackass wants to come flying up at the stage, and then he finds himself clotheslined and on the floor, or laying down in between the barricade and the fucking stage. And it's like, man, don't do stupid shit. You won't win stupid prizes. So sorry, bro.
Nah, man. And I mean, after the shit that happened with Dime, rest in peace, Dime.
Right.
Like, security has definitely been tightened.
It has.
It
was hard. Yeah, with that situation that happened with Randy too. It's with him having to deal with all that, and that's scary stuff, because you never know. I mean, it might be just one scenario where somebody either gets removed incorrectly, or they've just an accident happens, because it does happen. It's not like you specifically go after somebody that come up on stage to murder the dude, but if the odd chance that something happens and something goes wrong, or maybe that dude or whoever misses a step, and that's the inch difference between them hitting the barricade, or them careening into other people, or them having a safe landing, or whatever. You never know how it's going to react, so you just have to be as careful as you possibly can. And with the Dime murder, that's what set into place the security talks I got going to work for those guys for hell yeah back in the day. Was I think the first question Chad asked me, he's like, you willing to take a punch for me? I go, take a punch. He was like, all right, that's cool, very good, that's all I needed to know. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you guys safe, don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, I can definitely tell you're a dude who can handle his own.
I've been known to.
That's what I've noticed about a lot of techs, man. A lot of techs are not afraid to get dirty. You're a dude who looks like he'd beat some ass. Aaron is just scary. Ex-military, airborne, scary motherfucker.
Right.
And I've noticed a lot of people, the Lee brothers. Oh my God.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I've seen them do remove people accordingly, and let's say Royce is not the biggest dude in the room, but he's going to handle his business and knows exactly how to do it and is proficient at it. He doesn't want to be, nobody comes into it wanting to be mean to anybody. But if you fuck up, we're going to let you know you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's just how it goes.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Aaron was telling me a story about how, I think Royce got one of his friends backstage for Slayer, but they ended up in the fucking green room. Everyone knows you don't go in the green room. Like, I don't care who you are. You don't go in the green room.
Right.
So he went in there and beat the fuck out of the guys and drug them out back and walked up to him and was like, I took care of him for you, boss. Knuckles all bloodied up and shit. And dude's like, you didn't have to do that for me. He's like, nah, they fucking knew better. They didn't need to be back. I'm like, Jesus,
I would say
remind me.
that's the worst thing, when people know better and do stupid shit anyway. I watched, it's funny, worked with both of them at different times. I won't say their names, but I will tell you they're both large gentlemen. And one guy was a guest at a show, and another guy was doing the security for the show. And at one point, he looks up, and this dude's like halfway across the stage. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" They knew each other. He was like, "What are you doing?" So he walked over, walked up or ran out to grab the guy, picked him up, like bear hugged him, and headbutted him, and then drug his ass off stage. Because he's like, he's going to go to flailing and struggling. There's no way I can control the situation. So he headbutted him, made him dizzy, and then he just like, whoop, went a little limp. He just drug his ass off stage. It's like, but and then of course afterwards they're like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me." Well, you know better, you jackass. You don't do that shit. I hate that when it's a friend or somebody you considered a friend, because then you're gonna have to fix your friendship.
Fix your friendship, and you have to answer for it.
Exactly.
To the rest of the band, to the managers, to the venue, to everybody. Like that. That's your ass on the line.
Yeah.
And that's why when I'm doing like photography and stuff like that, my friends are like, "Hey man, can you get us backstage?" Or I'm like, "Dude, I'm not even allowed backstage." Like, the fuck do you mean? And when
I've been given a designated area. That's it.
Right. And then when I do get to go backstage, it's a really special thing. And I don't fuck around with that. Like when I was working backstage for Louder Than Life a couple years ago, when Red Hot Chili Peppers were the headliner, and everything, like that was completely surreal. But I had friends asking, "Can you take me backstage? Can you take me backstage?" I'm like, "Dude, like, no, like I can't do that." Like, do you know the number of high profile people back there? Like, and that's their area to rest and relax.
Yeah.
Like that's not where they want to be, this persona. That's where they just want to have a beer and smoke a joint or have a cigarette or whatever, and just fucking kick their feet up and just chill. People don't actually, I saw Lamb of God was on that one. And I was there backstage for that, in the media area and all that, just kind of hanging out, whatever. And that was pretty surreal, to actually, I think Randy showed up and photobombed Josh Toomey.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he photobombed Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just this really cool experience. But people need to know that just because I'm your friend doesn't mean I can get you special favors when it comes to bands, in general. Like, that's an earned thing. That's a thing that I've earned through doing what I do and earning the trust of everyone. That's really what it is, because they don't know you from a fucking hill of beans.
Exactly. We talk about like the friends that have fucked up or screwed that situation up. What I think other people maybe that they don't understand, like, let's say you go to the next city and somebody wants a favor or whatever, you're like, "Dude, my privileges have been struck because of that one dude. I could have done this, but now I can't, because I can't let anybody back there now.
Right.
And that sucks, but it is what it is."
It is. I mean, I have an opportunity coming up with Sum 41 Friday.
Cool.
With I've already been talking about Tom, so I'm just gonna say it's with Tom. And I'm going to shadow him. Now with this, I'm going in nervous as fuck, first off, because I'm gonna be side stage with Tom, and I don't want to fuck up at all, because it's his ass on the line.
Yeah.
Not necessarily mine. I mean, my reputation is at stake too, but it's him. It's his job. It's his livelihood. I can't fuck that up. So I'm going to watch him, because I want to show everyone what it's like to be attacked firsthand. So, him restringing guitars, tuning them, setting them up, handing them off, and everything that goes in between, making sure the sound is right. Same things that you have to do. That a lot of people don't get to see. I want to say there's one guy who does it decently. That's Dave from Disturbed. he does his little videos and stuff, which is cool because
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't do that,
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It's just a whole different world behind the curtain that
Yeah, it
people
is.
don't see.
Yeah. The other thing is you got a lot of people back there doing other things while the show's going on. So, when if you're say been lucky enough to get a spot where somebody's like, stand right here, you stand right there. You don't move, don't roam around, don't do anything else, don't try to get in somebody else's, line of sight or whatever so they can see you. You're told that because that's for your own safety. Because you
Oh
might
yeah.
have a lighting rig or another, let's say another drum kit or something else being pushed around back there or some other large piece of equipment. And the next thing you know, you've got a broken ankle because you fucked up, weren't where you were told to stay. There's a lot of that goes into it. I think a lot of people just need to have that in mind when they have that opportunity or if they're given that opportunity.
Right. And a lot of people, this isn't the 80s. It's not a giant party backstage.
Right.
It's not.
It
All
really
that's
isn't.
being No, dude, it's one of the most boring and bland places ever. And it's usually cold.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
usually
it
cold.
usually is.
So, it's not this giant party. If you're looking for the party, those usually happen on the buses, if you want to call them parties.
Right, right.
It's mostly just everyone relaxing, playing video games, watching TV, reading a book, talking
Yeah,
about the gig, whatever. It's not this big glamorous life that people think it is. And backstage is way more bland because it's nothing but gear being moved around, everything being set up, in the landing area to go on next,
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that. And all you hear is radio chatter over walkies and shit like that. And
yeah.
I remember that with Baby Metal and Death Clock. So much
Hmm.
radio chatter, and I mean, it was both in English and in
Japanese, yeah.
Japanese. So it was all that conflicting, and it was cold as shit. All you could hear was that, and the bus engines running, and just like this cacophony of sound, but everyone was just kind of sitting, like this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's it. That's your party. Just
There's the party. People are either sitting
yeah.
there like this or they're sitting on their phone. You
Yep,
know?
that is the party. Watching the time. All right, we gotta go. All right,
Yeah.
our turn.
Yep.
I mean, that's it. The partying and stuff. Those are for the local bands in your early days. The after parties.
Yeah.
Not so much once you get bigger, man, because you're just fucking tired. Those tours are monstrous.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
can
There's a
only
lot that goes
imagine.
into it. That's for sure.
Well,
And everybody gets
you
tired. You get tired because maybe you flew into the show that day, and that which just sucks, but it does happen. You have to fly in, or maybe you're working with gear you've never had to see before until that day. You don't even know if your shit's going to work. So there's the stressors, there's the physical exhaustion parts of it. So while there are parties that still do happen, and I condone whoever to do whatever, but if you're thinking every show is like that, it's backstage. Oh, this is going to be awesome, and you're disappointed because it wasn't strippers and shit everywhere. Sorry, like you said, it's not the '80s anymore. Don't get me wrong. It's still weird shit does still happen on occasion. Depends on what band's out there and who you're with, or what day it is. But if you're expecting the whole thing to be like that magical shit, it ain't.
No, it's definitely not. And that I think that's something that I'm really trying to rip away the veil of for,
Yeah,
fans and everything. Because a lot of people still think, oh my God, it's this giant thing. No, dude, it's so fucking boring.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's really not that entertaining. I mean, sure, you might see one of the band members walk by with a water, or something.
yeah,
And you're like, hey, and they're just
yeah,
like, that's it. That is your
yeah, yeah,
exchange. That is your moment in the sun. Oh my God, they waved at me.
yeah.
Well, you're gonna get more recognition from them when they're on the stage because you're part of that crowd than you're gonna
Yeah.
get backstage.
And that truly is the best thing about it for I think everybody involved. And every band I've ever worked for will agree to the fact that there's an energy transference that does happen in that situation with that person being out there in the crowd and being a part of that mass of energy. That's when they're digging a show and everybody's into it and they're feeding the band that energy. The band will feed off of that and give you that energy right back. So if you ever granted, there are some shitty people out there, but for the most part, um, I've seen so many bands that are just like, man, the energy, this crowd, this was a great show. It's that back and forth that made it that great show. You know, then again, I've seen some crowds that were, how were they referred to by somebody goes, man, that crowd was like limp dick. I was like, yeah, they just weren't into it tonight. I guess, you know, Tuesday and whatever, you know, American city you can think of. It's like, wow. Now we'll say that though, that the difference between say Euro crowds and South American crowds and crowds here, way different, way different. You know, not to disparage anybody in the great U.S., but the people down there, they react to music. They appreciate the music. They appreciate the artist, and they're just all into the whole experience. You know, and they lose their minds on stuff and have a great time, and that energy's always there. You know, I don't think I've ever been in a say any European venue where it was just kind of like, oh, okay, or you get some kind of like everybody's, you know, crossed arms and just looking at the stage like, yeah, like all pissed off and bored, and or leaning on the rail like, yeah, whatever, you know.
Yep.
So, but yeah, if U.S. crowds, more U.S. crowds would be like that, you know, that'd be awesome.
I mean, I've noticed that about like South American crowds, man. Like in Brazil and shit, like
oh yeah,
they come out and you don't really see anyone on their fucking phones, which
oh,
is
yeah.
like amazing because you're right there, they're in the moment. And I think it's because we as Americans were spoiled fucking rotten with
Yeah,
music.
this is true. Yeah.
Like legit. I mean, you just have to go online and just type in some random bullshit and you'll come up with 5 bands you've never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you go to, you know, other countries, they don't have that luxury.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they don't have the luxury of, oh, I have a show going over, you know, an hour away from me, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
this huge band. You know, them,
Yep.
they have to wait for that shit. Like first time I saw you guys in Lamb of God was when Mark Hunter had to take over for Randy because Randy came down with COVID.
Yep.
So that was in Grand Rapids, and I was
Yep.
there for that. And at first, a lot of people were really shitty,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but like Mark got called a few hours beforehand. Like
Yeah.
he had
I
no
learned
prior
everything on the
prep.
fly.
He did, you know, and now people are out there yelling about artists using teleprompters and shit. Okay, you guys try and remember 50, 60 songs that you guys have written and memorize it all, you know, down to you know, muscle memory,
Yeah.
and try and do a song that you haven't done in 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, you try and
Exactly.
fucking do that and remember every fucking lyric. It's not happening, man. It's not
Yeah.
happening. And some of these bands have been doing it for 50 fucking years. So their catalog is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yes, it is. So
You
that's, yeah,
know?
the teleprompters do come in handy for, you know, a lot of bands. And I even know, you know, in every genre, I've seen country artists do it. I've seen, you know, metal, rock, rap, you name it. I've seen everybody use the teleprompter thing. And some people will have that memory set up, but you might get a show where, you know, they say, what do you guys want to hear? Somebody throws out one of your earlier catalog songs and you're like, can we pull this off? Everybody's looking around each other like, can we do this? Like, yeah, I think we can. And you're like, hope I can remember these words, bro, because it's been a minute, you know. So
That's
it takes a bit. So, you know, they do have their place too, and more power to people who use them. You know, it's not cheating. Hell, I've known so many bands that, you know, you'll have, maybe if it's even a new song, but it's something that's not usually part of your set list. So they'll have, like, say the TM assistant or whoever's back there print out, you know, sheets of lyrics just to stick them for that one song, or they'll do like a cheat thing, like where they have the first few lyrics of each
mhm.
line, and they're like, okay, once I'm into that, I know where that's going to go, and they do it that way. But, you know, the crowd gets to hear the song, so shut the hell up.
That I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. And Mark came out with that big ass fucking poster board with all the lyrics on it.
Oh yeah,
And he killed it. You know, those who are up front were like, he sucked. But then if you listen to him from the back and you
yeah,
listen to the recordings, you're like, dude, he fucking killed it. It's like,
oh
of
yeah,
course
he
he
did.
killed it. It's Mark fucking Hunter.
Yeah, yeah, he did a great job. It's like any of the people that have, you know, and any artist that can't do their show, for something like that comes up on the fly. You're like, fuck, man. You feel terrible about it. You're like, what are we going to do? It's like, we can't, it doesn't make any sense to cancel the show. So
No.
the next best thing is we got to get a guest in here to do this. And it's like, even like, you know, I remember, you know, Matt Heafy coming up and doing a couple of songs with us to fill in that
Yep.
gap as well. And it was cool. And it was also cool to me because you get to hear a totally different singer doing it a totally different way or doing it his way than hearing it say just the same thing that you would normally hear. So I'd love to hear Randy do it, but this is cool to get to hear Matt do it or hear Mark do it and just get a kind of a, it's a kind of like a special thing. That audience, let's say, you know, 5 shows down the road, that crowd's not going to get that show. You guys got to be a part of something special that did not exist up until 24 hours ago. So be thankful for that shit. And you still got to see your show. You didn't have to cancel it, you know. And
Exactly.
we'll come back around the next go around and it'll be the regular deal. So there's always a positive way to look at that stuff.
Oh yeah. And I mean that's kind of what I was trying to tell people who were pissed off. I was like, you guys just experienced a once in a lifetime opportunity. This will never happen
exactly
again.
Right. Yep.
Like ever. That show you saw with those other people, you guys are now bonded with that because nobody else is ever gonna see that in person. They'll see videos, but they will never experience it in person. Like that shit is mind blowing.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh.
And so like it's cool little things like that. And then for you guys to kind of be back there too and be like, man, I was a part of that. You know, like I get to see the shows with Randy and everyone else regularly all the time. But now I got to be a part of this too, and I got to work that shit. Fuck yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And that even happens like from the tech standpoint too. It's like you have somebody that like I had a situation where my buddy had to leave the tour for you know, personal reasons for like a couple of shows because he had to handle something. And he's like, "Can you take over my gig for me for a few days while I'm gone?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So you go to work for like, you get the opportunity to go to work for one of the other bands that's on the tour, and the tour keeps rolling. It's flawless because everybody kind of knows everybody and they're familiar with their songs, or even if they've never worked with them before, they at least know the songs and they've heard them on a daily basis because we're all on the same tour. So you get to roll over, take care of that artist, and maybe get to learn something new and different. And it's a little different than your daily in and out. That's a kick-ass thing to do. You know, I like helping out buddies. I've had to leave tours. Like when my dad died and I was on tour, had to have my buddy Mikey B come over, and he couldn't make it there for like, I think he had shows he had to take care of, but he was freed up like a few days later. So I stayed on tour and finished out my responsibilities before I flew back home to take care of that. But he got to come in and take care of me for that gig. And, you know, everybody, like you say, even on down the line, somebody will hit you up and be like, "Hey, can you do this?" And you're like, "Absolutely, dude. I got you covered. Don't worry about it." And the show goes on. Fans are happy. The bands are happy. Unless you just suck at your gig, then everybody's happy, you know. So it's a good thing to be able to change it up on occasion and get to be a part of something a little bit different than what you were normally doing.
Hell yeah, man. And that's one thing I love about music is the universal language.
Yep.
It really is. It is. I don't give a shit where you're from. You know, you don't even have to understand the lyrics. A lot of bands out there, people don't understand the lyrics. It's the vibe, it's the energy, it's what's being put out there. You know, I think that's one of the reasons I love being in the industry, involved in it in some small facet. Is because I get to see the joy that the music brings to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, which is really, really fucking cool. So you said you've worked with other bands. I've heard you mention Hell Yeah. Have you worked with Hell Yeah?
Yeah, I was Vinnie's tech from let's see, when was that? It was a long time ago. Hell, whenever we got started, I think I got in around 2010, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. Well, because Kat was his tech back then. He came over from the Pantera side of things, and Kat was out with us for a while, and then Kat left, and then we had one fill-in dude that finished out a European tour, and Mikey B from Lamb of God back then, who was the tech for Adler, came over, and he worked with us. But when he had to go back to Lamb of God, Vinny called me up. He's like, "You up for a challenge?" I was already working for him as Chad's assistant. And then he called me up and he's like, "Yeah, you up for a challenge?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Cool, be at the house at 6." It's like, "Cool." I knew we were getting ready to go to Australia and everything. And it's like, "All right." So my role just changed. Let's see what happens. And got over there. He trained me up that night while drinking. And, by the time I was good and drunk, he's like, "All right, man, you got 3 days. You got the gig. We're going to Australia. Let's knock this out. Here we go. This ought to be fun." And
Oh,
yeah, and it went on from there. So I was his tech from then on, and stayed there ever since. So, and that, like I said, I always tell people, I said I'm still Vinnie Paul's tech because he never let me go. So um, there's that. I've worked with him. I worked with the band 10 years as a guitar tech. Um, I've worked for Black Label Society as a drum tech, stage manager. I've worked for, of course, Lamb of God. I've worked for an artist here in Texas, country artist named Pat Green. On the interim, I fill in some stuff with them sometimes. I worked with a country artist named Kerry Freeman, doing guitar tech stuff for him, stage manager type stuff. And yeah, it's kind of all over the map. There's a band I would love to mention, but due to NDAs, I'm not allowed to say who it is. But it's still, that too was a great opportunity to go work with them. And it was more of the TM assistant kind of thing versus doing the drum thing. So it was nice to be able to get out in varied capacities and work with these different bands and do things. Get to meet a lot of cool people that way.
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, you worked with Vinny. I mean, that's pretty legendary within itself in Black Label Society. And everything I've heard about Vinny has always been fucking awesome. From
Mm-hmm.
his old driver, and friend, I'll just say his initials, ST.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, ST was, I guess, really, really, really good friends with Vinny. And my buddy, I call him Uncle Bob, Barbecue Bob. He did
I
barbecue
love
out at,
Barbecue Bob.
Barbecue Bob.
Hell yeah, I do. I'm got one of his shirts laying around here, like next to
Blacktooth?
me. Hell yeah,
That's
Blacktooth
that's my
Barbecue.
uncle. That's my uncle.
That's your uncle. That's awesome.
That's my uncle. Yeah, Uncle Barbecue Bob.
That,
Yep, Bob West.
that's
Yep.
awesome. I don't know
Oh
what
yeah,
happened just
man.
now. Let me see. Can you
I
still see
hear
me?
you.
Because yeah, I don't know
I
what
hear
happened.
you, but I can't
Let's
see
see.
you.
I don't know what happened. Hang on. Let me see if it's there. It is. I just had to. I don't know what the hell happened.
Refresh. You're all good,
Weird
man.
things. Electronics, man. Weird shit happens.
He told me that he and Vinny used to barbecue and shit together and whatnot and talk barbecue. I'm like, dude, that's so fucking cool. He's like, yeah, Vinny was so fucking nice. He's like, they were like the inspiration as to Blacktooth Barbecue. I was
Yeah,
like, dude, that is beyond cool.
absolutely.
Like,
Speaking of Vince, he's peeking over my shoulder back here.
ah,
He's back there on the
there,
wall.
R.I.P. dude. That's just, I don't know. I feel, I don't know. I feel blessed to know the people that I know who have the experiences with the Abbott brothers.
Yeah.
Because some of the things I've heard aren't for public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show just how upstanding they were even outside of the limelight.
Yeah, they were
Which is,
fantastic.
it just shows that they were true blue country boys. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they were Southern boys. And that's something I love. I live in Michigan now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm an Iowa boy.
Yeah.
So I'm still considered Southern.
Yeah.
I was like, I
Yeah.
am not Southern
Right.
by any means. The only Southern I ever did was after the Katrina. I helped in New Orleans for
Mm-hmm.
quite some time with the cleanup and all that. That's where I learned how to make like gumbos and etouffees and shit like
There
that.
you go. Yeah.
Was
If you're
there,
gonna learn it, you might as well learn it there, man.
right? Learn how to make a po' boy, but I will not make a po' boy. I don't
Ah,
feel that I have earned that privilege.
understood. Understood.
Like you can't take po' boys out of Louisiana, and
Right.
still call them a po' boy. I just don't feel that that's right.
I understand that. Yeah, I get that statement completely. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
just like
Oh yeah.
Bucky's expanding outside of Texas. Now Bucky's popping up everywhere.
Yeah,
Talking to
that's
a
weird to me.
yeah,
Well, the
I,
same
I was
thing with it's like Whataburger. It's like whenever they the people that owned them here sold out to some company out of Chicago, and all of a sudden they're popping up. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm on tour and I'm in New Mexico, and somebody's like, "Hey, man, I brought your Whataburger," I'm like, "Fuck yeah, that's cool." But it's like at the same time, it's like it's weird to see it outside of Texas. Now that I see it, I'm like, "Oh man, come on, that's ours. Stop it." It's like the Buc-ee's thing.
Yeah, that's one of my friends. He's a TM. He goes by Mayhem Jesus. He's originally from Texas, and he went on a rant about Buc-ee's. He's like, "Man, I don't like fucking seeing Buc-ee's, all over these other places. Like, that's a Texas thing. Quit stealing our Texas shit."
Right.
I get that. I feel that. Like, no shame in that. I would like to go to a Buc-ee's in Texas sometime.
Yeah.
I'd say the furthest I've been into Texas was Corpus Christi.
That's the furthest. That's pretty far down there. Yeah. But I tell you what, if you make your trek back up from that point, you're going to run into a few Buc-ee's.
Oh yeah.
Damn sure.
Oh yeah. I flew, but yeah, it was visiting the base in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, got you. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I've been to Buc-ee's in Daytona, which was awesome. By the way, now they're making them here in like Michigan and Indiana, and I'm like, well, now I think it's getting a little extreme, a little far fetched.
Yeah.
Now it's coming too far up, and I think it's gonna lose like its I don't want to say integrity, but just the feel.
Yeah, the feel, the originality, all of that. Everything just becomes the way my buddy put it. He goes, "Man, it just gets where everything becomes beige." I go, "Yeah, it sucks." I go, "Everything becomes beige at some point."
I agree with that. Everything it's becoming bland.
Very
losing
bland,
its flavor.
Yep.
It's like a steak. A lot of people around here. Okay, here's a question for you. How do you like your steak?
Oh, I eat them medium. So
okay,
that's medium or medium rare.
There you go. See, I'm a medium rare guy. A lot of people up here like their shit well done. I'm like, how the hell do you call that a steak?
That's just burnt flesh. That's a jerky at that point. Fuck that.
Right.
And burnt jerky at that.
I learned a lot of my barbecuing from Barbecue Bob. How to do briskets and how to do ribs and all that shit. He was the one who introduced me to Slap Yo Mama.
Oh yes. I think I have some up there in the pantry as we speak.
I have two of the big ass ones, man, because I use it on everything. And use it on like pork butt and stuff, smoked pork butt, boy. And I get made fun of up here because I have a lot of Southern sensibilities when it comes to my eating. I like collard greens, I like chitlins, I like pig's feet. I like all that stuff, and people just look at me like, "You're fucking nuts." I'm like, you don't know.
You don't
know.
Yeah.
Until
once you get down there, you have that. Yeah, you gotta love that stuff. And you get down there, especially like various parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. There's so much good food down there, and and like you said, until you've had it, you don't know. Because if somebody came up to somebody up north, they're like, "Man, we're gonna make some hog maws," and they'll be like, "What?" No, we can't. I don't even know what that is. I'm about to find out. But it's great. But yeah, like you said, those seasonings, that Slap Your Mama, all those, there's some good stuff down there.
Oh man, I love that Slap Yo Mama. I use it on just about everything. That and I use Stubbs. I use a lot of Stubbs barbecue sauce on stuff too. I like to make my own personally, but sometimes I can get a little pricey depending on what you're using in it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, like that's one thing that I would love to do on tour is just all the stops for food. I know Marcus of Mudvayne likes to post about when he's stopping at different restaurants.
Yes, he does.
And his tips for chips and shit like that, which I love. I mean, like, so what are some of the most unique places you've eaten on tour? Because you've literally been around the world.
Yeah. There were some places over in Japan that I liked because they were like, when you were talking about things being bland or kind of, beige, it's like some of the places you may go here in the States, they're quaint and they're kitschy, but they're just not quite the real deal. So getting over there and getting to eat at some of these places, restaurants where they bring the hot grill looking thing to the middle of the table that's round, and you're throwing your meat. Yeah, you throw your meat stuff onto that thing, and You know, you're literally cooking your meal yourself, so you get to cook it to your liking, which is great. And all of that stuff was fantastic. To see it in the real deal, where it's from, people doing it the old traditional ways, where they're using coal, it's not electricity. You know, even hot rocks, it was really cool. So there's been those places, European places, when you get the opportunity, like if you, when you're in France and you go to a restaurant there, you know, that would be a French restaurant here, but it's there, everything's made precisely the way they did it. I know we just had when we were in Australia a few weeks ago, I'm sitting at the table, I'm looking at kangaroos on the menu, and I'm like, I have to do this because I'm here. So why not? And it was fantastic. It was some of the leanest, best steak I've ever had. I was really impressed by the way they cooked it. Yeah, shocked me, especially being from here. I'm like, oh, I know my steaks, you know, but that stuff was, it was pretty impressive. It's just different because there's, you know, you're in that environment, so you're kind of
Mhm.
getting the full meal deal on the whole thing, and that was and the good things about that. Now, don't get me wrong, I've eaten my share of, you know, roller dogs at 3 a.m. from God knows whatever sheets or whatever the hell is we're passing by at the moment, or you know, the come and goes or tootin' totems or whatever. Now, some of the guiltier pleasures are like those. You stop at like an Allsup's in Texas and get one of their burritos, their deep fried burritos. You're like, you might pay for it later, but damn, in that moment, it's the greatest thing on the planet. You know, so go from like the high end, really good stuff in some other country down to the deep fried greatness of, you know, 3 a.m. at an Allsup's, and it's like they're on equal par in your mind because you're like, fuck, I'm hungry.
Man, anything deep fried is amazing. I even deep fried butter. That's I get shit about that. Deep fried butter, deep fried ice cream, deep fried Twinkies, deep fried Oreos. You know, you
Oh
deep
yeah,
fry anything and it tastes amazing. As long
yeah,
as you season that as long as you season it right,
yeah.
you're
Oh yeah.
good. And I have noticed one thing. One of the biggest things I've noticed is the imitation of Guinness
Oh yeah,
Stout here in America. So they advertise it as Guinness Stout, you know,
yeah.
as like this dark lager. I'm like, okay. So I drink it here, you know, and it looks nice. You know, it's foamy, it's thick, it's nice, and it has that like smoky flavor to it. But then when you actually go over to like Ireland and you
Hmm.
drink it, you're like, motherfucker, I'm getting ripped off over there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had an experience in Scotland that was like that. This he was great. We had we called him Swaggy. He was our merch guy, Scott, and he was from Scotland. So I remember we're on the bus one night, and he's like, "I had to go in there to get a pint." I was like, "What? What?" He goes, "Oh, I forgot you're American. I'm going to go over here to the pub and get a pint." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He goes, "You want to go?" I was like, "Sure." So we both went over there and got a Guinness, proper, you know, Guinness, and he goes, he got something, the deep fried variety. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, it's haggis. I was like, that's what haggis is. All right, well, let's get this over with because it sounds like shit when you're thinking about just the words of it. But it smelled great, and when I ate it, I was just like, damn, I'm impressed. No wonder people like this. You know, that's really good. And it was filled with the meats and everything else and all this, you know, whatever seasonings they used. But it's just that deep fried stomach, you know, which sounds
Mhm.
terrible, but it was really good, you know.
That's one thing I can say that I like about like uh you know Britain in
Mm-hmm.
general, you know, over there is, you know, like the meat pies and the cakes and everything they have over there. It
Mm-hmm.
okay, so when you think of meat pie, you just think of, you know, like just a pie filled with meat. Dude, over
Yeah.
there it is so good. Because people think
Yep.
of meat pie, they think of like pot pies over here. Nah,
Yeah.
bro.
Oh yeah. It's
Oh
completely
my
different.
goodness. It is. It's a whole different world, you know, and or people who've seen Sweeney Todd, they'll think of meat pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that. I'll tell you what. And if I have eaten that at some point, cool. I enjoyed it. You know, but I think one of the weirder things, you know, like people. Yeah, I was raised. My dad was country as hell, so um, I've eaten, you know, alligator. I've eaten snake. I've eaten this. I've eaten that, and I think it was more out of his enjoyment just to watch me do it. You know, got a kick out of it or whatever. But it was good. I'm cool with it. Um, but being over, I think I was in, where were we? Somewhere in Indonesia. It was Jakarta, I think. It was Jakarta. And me and Greg Tribbs were sitting there talking, and Kopi Luwak is on the, or however you pronounce that correctly. But it was up there on the menu for the coffees, and we're like, yeah, let's try it. And this sounds like a terrible idea. Granted, it was really good. It's just the processing of those particular coffee beans just sounds terrible. But it was good.
I mean, I definitely understand. I mean, the way coffee is made in general, some people, if they really don't know, like the
Yeah.
higher end coffee, like, oh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
You know?
see, speaking of that, and you're talking about doing things for the roadies, and I didn't mean to segue into this, but it happened. Is that something I did years ago when a coffee company, somebody I knew had this coffee company, and they were looking to get bands to sign up on it and put their name out there. It was another way for bands to make a little extra money when they were on the road, and that's cool. And it's another product with their name on it, which is great. You know, that's part of the deal is the advertising. And then they were trying to get Hell Yeah to do it, and they didn't really jump on the deal. They had other things in mind, and so they'd hit me back up. They're like, if you know anybody else that wants to do this, let me know. I was like, yeah, I know somebody. They're like, who? And I went, me. And they're like, what? What do you mean? Well, I go, I want to do one, but I want to do it for the roadies. I want to. That's based on this is for them. So it's got to be dark. It's got to be strong. But it can't be crappy and bitter like a lot of dark coffees are. And I've been drinking coffee probably since I was 2, or whatever. So I've, and I'm, all of 5'6". They say it stunts your growth, so they might be right. But so, but I've got, I started this label up based on, it's a loving tribute to the boys. So it's Peking's 333rd Road Dog Blend, and it's for them, and it's made. Whenever the company sent me all these different coffees, they're like, you can either pick one or blend them or do whatever you want to do. And I went through and picked up my own and knew what I had to do, or knew what I wanted from it. And it's a product now. And they came up with the right blend, and I tried it, and I was like, that's perfect. And that's where we're at with it.
Rock D Coffee.
Yeah, Rocked Coffee. There it is. 333rd Road Dog Blend.
Shit, I'm gonna have to look into that, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's good.
It won't
let you down.
I love coffee. I mean, I'm definitely a connoisseur of coffee. I almost killed myself on coffee back in the day. I was working at a daycare and stuff, and I was drinking 2-3 pots of Death Wish a day.
Yeah, I got you. 2 or 3 pots of Death Wish a day.
2 or 3, pots.
Damn.
Because I was working at a special needs daycare,
right,
where our oldest child was 8, but our youngest was, like 3 weeks old.
Wow.
Right. Okay. And all of them had different allergens or behavioral problems and things like that. And so I was doing that, and then I was also working a job at doing VR stuff. Like I was always fucking busy. So I was drinking the shit out of that. Well, fast forward a little bit, I moved away from that area, which was South Bend, Indiana, and I moved to a place called Holland, Michigan.
Okay.
Which I was working at a factory there. And it was right after COVID, after they started lifting the COVID bans, people go back to work. Well, they were working at 16-hour days, 7 days a week.
Right.
And so I wasn't eating right. I wasn't sleeping right. So I was chugging this coffee, taking energy pills, and I stroked out.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that'll do it.
I learned I need to stop drinking this much coffee, but I still have a knack and a taste for it.
Very good.
So I'm definitely gonna have to buy some of your coffee, man.
Dude,
because I'm all about supporting the roadies. I mean,
yeah, that's the thing. It's like I like the feedback from people to know if they like it or not. And if I say, don't lie, if it's not your thing, tell me. I like that. But it's every kind of feedback is great. And if it's one thing that takes you, say, from 2 pots down to like a cup, 2 cups a day, cool. So that might be a good thing. It's like mine. I actually used to drink a shit ton of coffee too, until I got mine. And it sounds really cocky. I don't mean to sound that way, but once I tried the blend, I was just like, I'm good on it. Just a couple of cups. It just, that suits me just perfectly. And I've even gotten to the point, maybe it's just because I'm a little bit older now, but like I'll drink it. If I drink it like towards the end of the day, I better process the time because I don't want to be like 3 a.m. being like, why can't I sleep? But it's good stuff, man. I think you're really gonna dig it.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, and roadies, you guys know your coffee. You guys definitely know your coffee because you guys live off that shit, on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely get that. And I mean, between doing this, because I also manage bands on the side still, and I work as a concert promoter now at a place called the Music Factory out of Battle Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And I just joined up with that, so I'm putting together a lot of like death metal, deathcore shows, hardcore shit.
Yep.
So between managing bands, doing that, doing the photography thing, doing this thing, I don't really sleep. So
Yeah. No, I get that.
to get me going, So yeah. Your recommendation, better to drink it in the morning or in the middle of the day?
For me, I'm a morning person anyway, because I'll get up and before the sun's up and kind of get my day started most of the time. So when I do that, yeah, of course I like it in the morning. Plus, it's like that's my time when everything is quiet. Even if I'm on a tour bus and we're cruising down the highway, I'll sit up with the driver and just sip coffee, look at the world go by. That's my moment of zen and peace in that, and I just kind of acclimate to my day better that way. Yeah, that will happen. That I'll do have coffee midday. Like say if load end's done, we've set up, we've done sound check, whatever, and I got time to kill and chill, I'll have another cup. I like that kind of stuff.
I can definitely feel that. I do like being on the road and looking at the sights and shit. And I do when I get up in the morning anymore. I grew up on a farm, so like I'm.
Yeah, you're
I
familiar.
got tired. I'm familiar with it, and I got tired of it.
Yeah, I get that.
Like because I went to a school that was I call it podunk. But I mean, it really was a little podunk town. We had one gas station, and like we would drive our tractors and lawnmowers to school.
Damn.
Like I
All right.
shit you not. Like behind our football field was a cornfield. Our cross country meets were done in cornfields.
Outstanding.
So like podunk.
Yeah.
No bullshit. And we got graded for bringing our tractors in to have them worked at in shop class.
Okay.
Type shit. Our senior prank is we released a whole bunch of pigs that were greased up into the high school.
Oh, fantastic.
So
I love that. And also said that to me sounds rock and roll too. It's like, if we got that opportunity, and that might have been something that we'd have pulled with the Hell Yeah stunts that we've done, was that, grease up some pigs and let them loose somewhere and see what happens.
Oh yeah.
It'd be fun.
Oh, it was fun watching the teachers.
Oh, I bet they were losing their minds.
Oh, they were not happy. And mind you, this is in Iowa, so Iowa's known for what? Corn and pigs.
Right.
We had both in abundance. So
there he said, we're gonna utilize them. That's funny as hell.
Yeah. So I'm definitely familiar with getting up at the ass crack of dawn, 3:30 in the morning to go out, milk the cows, feed the chickens, make sure the geese are still good, make sure that the coyotes haven't come in and screwed up our flock or anything like that.
Right,
so,
right. Absolutely.
I was gonna say you should be used to that being like a Texas boy, I would think.
Yeah.
So,
well, like I said, being raised by my dad, who was country and military, I had no choice but to get up early.
And the military side of it, oh man, yeah, my pappy was a chief of police, so
there you go. That's a trip. Yeah. That's another hard lesson to get by too, because you're gonna learn one way or another.
Oh, I definitely learned there was nothing I did that was not known about, ever.
Especially in a small town environment.
Oh yeah. Chief of police in a small town of maybe 1,000 people, like everybody knows everybody. There's nothing that goes on that they don't know about.
Yep.
So gotta love that shit, man. And of course, this was before the days of popularized cell phones and internet. This was like 2005, so like right as phones were becoming smart, but we saw like the stupid razors and that type of shit. So you could literally just call up, somebody and be like, "Hey, have you seen my kid? Yeah, he's over here. Da 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 da." or if they don't know, then they know somebody who does know.
Oh, absolutely. Or like that
was
meme where like you ride around, you just look for the bicycles, and you're like, all right, that's where they're at. Okay, cool.
Yep. I saw a meme the other day that was it was a whole bunch of just letters, and they're like, you were known if you were born in the 90s or before the 90s if you could understand this. It was like, holy shit. I just looked at the letters. I was like, get your motherfucking ass back inside this goddamn house before I beat your ass. And I was like, I just had to look at the letters and I knew it. It's like, fuck.
Yeah. Oh,
Am
exactly.
I really getting that old?
it's between those, I know exactly the one you're talking about because I've seen it, heard it many times growing up, especially. And then and not to mention if you were called by like if you were a kid that had, first name, middle name, last name, and you got called by all three, you were fucked. You're in trouble, man.
Oh yeah.
You got to get your fucking ass back in the house.
Yep.
So
I mean,
hear a lot of that.
They didn't even have to say get your fucking ass back in the house. They just say those three, and you're like, oh fuck, or just the two, the first and middle. The first and middle, you knew you were definitely toast. First and middle.
First and middle, you were done. I still remember vividly, like out of all the things you remember from childhood, one of my buddies, every time he was in trouble, I can hear his mom to this day calling his name. It was first, middle, last, but it was all of it. And like you said, you knew severity of it by what they called you. If they just called, like, if my mom would have been like, since my name's Patrick, if my mom would have been like, Pat, I'm like, oh, I'm good. Patrick, I was like, okay, I'm screwed.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It's game over at that point, man. And so my grandparents, okay, now mind you, guys, we grew up in different times, so this shit doesn't fly now, but it did then. If I pissed off my grandmother, she'd make me go out to the tree.
Oh yeah, get the switch.
Find one and find the switch for her. And I'd have to break that bitch off and I would have to fucking shave it down for it and hand it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the welts on my ass from that, or the razor strap.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yep. We had I used to get a kick out of my buddy because we came up in the time of the belt, and when his kids were little, I remember sitting in his apartment one day and his kids were acting up. And his belt, there was like this, how you got like the hat hooks or whatever that hang close to the door, coat hooks. He had that and the belt was hanging off that. And he looked at his kids and he would just point at it. And they were like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. He's like, go get it. And they'd like slow walk over to it. I go, you gonna have to use it? He goes, no. He goes, by the time they get over there and touch the belt, it all won't have to, they'll stop doing whatever they're doing. So, and it worked because he got them, and all it took was really one time that he had to do it. And then after that, it was just that pointing at the belt, and they chilled out. I was like, that works. That was his way of saying the first, middle, and last name. He was like, go get the belt.
I had to do that with my middle son recently. He was acting up. He was spouting back to his mama, and I don't play that game. You don't disrespect your mama in front of me. Nah. You don't disrespect me or your mama, but especially your mama. Don't disrespect your mama in my presence.
Right.
And so I started unbuckling my belt. And so he ran and jumped into the corner of the bed and like tried to hide. And I have a studded belt, so you hear that thing coming off.
Right.
And I didn't have to do anything. I just had to look at him. I just had to go like this and he quit.
Yep.
Now, mind you, y'all, I ain't gonna do it because I know that shit's illegal. And honestly, I just think kids these days are too fucking soft. That's my personal opinion. They're soft.
I will say this: when it came to like my boys, they're grown now and they have their own kids. But when they were coming up, if there was let's say it's a corporal punishment, as people will say, but if that had to happen with my oldest, my youngest learned by watching the oldest, so I didn't have to really worry about a lot with him. My oldest didn't feel pain, so that was pointless, So it's like the one time, that I did have to go belt wise, he was just like, like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh, this isn't having any effect at all on him. I got to find another means. And it took a while. And the only thing that ever worked really with him was one word. And when it finally came to me, the one word that stopped him in his tracks and just made him feel like dog shit, it made me feel like dog shit afterwards, because I was like, man, I don't want you to be that fucked up over it. But the word was, I'm disappointed. So when I said disappointed, that changed the game. That was it. You know, but I will say this, you know, when it came to the Southern upbringing, I too had to go get, and my grandmother had a willow tree and she
Oof.
liked, so I had to pull off a couple willow branches from time to time. And don't pull the small one.
Mm.
And as you know, the willow branches, you get that sound that even when it comes through the air at your ass, and the sting
Mm-hmm.
was incredible.
Mm.
Don't bring an old dried broken one, and don't bring one that's too
Mm-mm.
small. You know what you're looking for. So
Yep. Or
good
she'll just
times.
send you out. She'll just send you back there again and add on a few more lashings.
Oh yeah,
Boy,
she
howdy.
will. Yes, she will. That too
Mm.
only took like one time, you know, maybe two with me, maybe two, but it worked. You know.
Yep, I learned that lesson from lying to my Grammy.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't lie to
Don't do that
Grammy.
again.
Don't lie to Grammy and don't smart off to Pawpaw.
That's
Mm.
right. That's
They'll
right.
get your ass.
Yes, they will. My granddad used to just. That was funny. I'd get like acting cool and calm and everything's cool, like I'm not in trouble. And then the next thing I know, I'm back in the backyard building a shed or doing whatever by myself. And then they come out there and I'm like, I think I'm doing pretty good. It looks good to me. And they're like, no, let me show you what you did wrong. Take it all apart and make me do it again. I'm like, oh, come on, man. So there's
Yep.
always a different way and method of do it. So it's funny. Yeah, there's too
Nowadays,
many soft kids, but
oh, dude.
we can fix that.
Nowadays, you have to. I wish,
Yeah.
man. I wish. Now you have to do. Well, I mean, now kids, you take away their electronics.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know that, and I control the Wi-Fi on
Hmm.
my from my phone, so I can
There
be
you go.
anywhere that I want to be,
It just boop.
and yeah, I can be halfway across the country, and I can just log on to my stuff and be like, off.
Yep. You get that phone
You know.
call that they're screwing up. You're like, oh, there it goes.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
I mean that is one thing I love about technology these days. Writing lines.
Yeah.
Oof, that I don't even know how often I had to write lines. That shit was annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. That's for sure.
Yeah, writing lines and stuff like that. And it was during that time period where like where I really fell into metal. Okay, funny story how I got into rock and metal. I
Hmm.
used to be a pop kid, right? I was all Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Ricky Martin, all that shit. My
Right.
first ever concert was 98 Degrees.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. So let's fast forward a couple years. My sister, who at this point was training, she was building herself up because she wanted to be a construction worker. So she had this giant, bench press set in her room and, 25-pound dumbbells and shit like that. And I was out in my living room listening to Shaggy. She's like, hey,
Uh-huh.
you want to come listen to Leonard Skinner? I was like, I don't listen to rap.
Oh, that's amazing.
So she's like, no, come here. So she like grabbed me and pulled me into her room. And it was Tuesday's Gone by Skinner.
Oh, nice. There you go.
And I was like, I've heard this. This was on what was it? It was I wanna say it was in Happy Gilmore. I think it was in
Mm,
Happy Gilmore. But yeah, like that was like my real introduction to rock and roll and how that all came about.
nice.
And looking back on it, I can't just help but shake my head, but like,
Yeah. It's mind blowing,
wow,
man.
it is,
Yeah.
like I don't want to sound like I was, a piece of shit back then because I totally judged the band by their name, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
I guess we
remember.
all start somewhere.
Yeah, I remember mine. Like my dad. Music was always a big part of my life growing up because my mom played piano, played flute. My brother plays drums. I was into guitars at the time. Um, but dad listened to a lot of like old country. I mean, old country plus stuff like that was around back in the day, like the Kingston Trio and the Beach Boys and stuff like that. But his main thing was like country, bluegrass, Zydeco, stuff like that. And mom came along with like the rock, the pop, and all that kind of stuff back in the '70s and stuff. And I remember we had a neighbor. I remember the dude's name. His name was John Krill. He gave me a trifold album that had Kiss the originals in it, Hotter Than Hell, and whatever the Dress to Kill. was in there, and it was just a trifold album of this, and I was like, dude, that's really cool. So I started listening to it, and from that age of like whatever it was, 6, 7 years old, I became a Kiss fan, and that was my thing. And then that was also like I think the second, my first rock concert, not my first concert, but my first rock concert was that. And then it was like, it was when the Kiss Dynasty album came out. And I remember being in Washington, D.C. Like I said, Dad was military, so he was up at the Pentagon. And I remember like sitting in this hotel room and a commercial comes on that Kiss is coming in concert. And you got all the guys in their outfits and all this stuff. And then it looked cool. And I was like, Mom, can we go to this? She was like, no, that's the week after we leave. I'm like, damn it. All right, whatever. I probably didn't say damn it. I was like, dang it, whatever. And then we get back home and it's like in the middle of summer. And I see the same commercial come on the TV, and they're going to be at Tarrant County Convention Center. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Maybe I can talk Mom into it. So I talked her into it. And then she took me and my brother to go see that Kiss Dynasty show. We're way up, on the back wall of the arena and stuff, but I still remember it. And it was just like, that's what got me started into the harder rock side of things back then. There were other songs and things that I listened to, but I listened to everything. But as all of a sudden, it was like my mind was on this path and it's going into rock and roll and deeper into rock and roll. And it was cool because I was always in it, in bands and doing this and doing that when I was a kid. And then as I grew up and, got married and had children and all that shit, I was still into it, still loved it, still played guitar on occasion, but let most of that stuff kind of go by the wayside. Didn't think of it as like a path, still go see bands, see concerts, all that shit. And then I was in a business, in an auto finance business, and they were a third party lender. So in 2008, before the housing market crashed, third party lenders were the first to get the axe. So our company closed. And around that time, when that was happening, Hell Yeah had released their first CD, their first album, and they were having a CD release party at the Clubhouse in Dallas. Another buddy of mine who's a drummer calls me up. He's like, hey, you want to go out to see this? I was like, who's Hell Yeah? He's like, this is Vinny's new band. I was like, I can check it out. Sure. Why not? And I knew a buddy of mine who was a comedian was friends with Vinny, and I figured he'd be there. I'd get to see him. So I went out there, ran into the comedian dude. We kind of hit it off again. He's like, you still playing guitar? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got to come out and run out and do these parodies. And then, so I'm playing the parodies with him out on the road. And then, like I said, the other company closes down. I'm in between jobs. I'm just doing some side gigs with him. And then we eventually we grew the show up to a point with lighting effects, sound effects, other kinds of stuff. Vinny goes, I like what you're doing to this. I think it has legs. I want to take it to Vegas. He's like, you guys want to do it? And we were like, cool. Yeah. So Vinny got us a show, and he basically produced the show for us in Vegas. We did that for like 8 months. And at the end of that 8 months, when the show was done, I told him, I said, if you guys need somebody on the road, let me know. 2 months later, they called me up and said, hey, Chad's looking for an assistant. And everything kind of rolled. It was like going through my whole life and building up to this rock and roll moment, and then taking some time off to be an adult, do the right thing, do everything like I was supposed to do it. And when that rug got pulled out from under me, I was like, and my kids were a little older, and I was like, well, I've got this opportunity. And I talked to my girl. I go, what do you think? She goes, I think you should do it. And that took off, and there I was. And it's been on the road doing this stuff ever since. So it's cool that it comes back around from childhood to adulthood later on. It's a weird life.
That's badass, man. I mean, Kiss, some of the best performers I've ever seen live, and I got to see them during their Danny Wimmer run.
Right.
So that was really cool because at first I started off way in the very back at Welcome to Rockville. So I think that crowd was like 70,000. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It took up the entire raceway for Kiss. It was stupid. So I started off in the very back for that. I was like, okay, I'm never going to see them again. Well, then a band I'm working with, 2 bands I was working with got on to Louder Than Life. Nice. Because I was working with a management company. One of them I was doing independently. And then the other one was with the company I was working with. So ended up going there with them. And I ended up I want to say second row for Kiss,
Mm-hmm.
like from the barricade, second row from the barricade. Catching the streamers, all that. I was like, dude, after all these years, they still kill it like this. This is surreal, you
Yeah.
know. And to be able to say that I've seen Kiss twice in a year, you
Yeah.
know, like it's just crazy to me. I also
Yeah.
got to see In Flames multiple times that year, and Trivium,
Mm-hmm.
and just all sorts of bands that, you know, a year prior I never would have expected to be involved with or seeing or anything like that.
Yep.
Um, and it's all just from the love of music, you know, and wanting to
Mm-hmm.
share it with everybody else. You know, I'm not in the business for clout or fame or, you know, anything like that. It's really more just to share my love and of the industry with everyone else, and
Right.
for everyone to get that you know, to kind of give love to the roadies,
Yeah.
you know, because a lot of times I feel like it can be a thankless job from the everyday person. The bands, of course, are thanking you because like they
Yeah. Yeah.
know that you guys are a driving force. But the people on the outside, when they think of roadies, they think of, you know, streetwalkers,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
roadies.
They're thinking
You
of,
know,
yeah. They're
that's
thinking
not
of
really
like the
what the
guy that looks
roadies are.
homeless that got hired for the day or whatever. It's like, no, that ain't quite it.
No, no, not at all. I mean, to be a roadie, like you have to know your shit,
Yeah.
like 100%, because just as you were talking about earlier, how shit went awry. Like they have to be, you guys have to be ready for that at the
Yeah.
drop of a dime, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know that it makes it, you know it, and then to see the shows go off without a hitch, it really just is a testament to your guys' skill
Yeah.
and what you guys are doing.
I appreciate you
Because
saying that. Yeah.
I mean, I see it, man. You know, I've definitely seen it. You know, on both sides now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
behind the curtain and in front of the curtain.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
can understand that.
it's definitely a hard job. You know, and there are some bands that play in complete darkness, Death Clock,
Right.
where like I couldn't imagine fucking running up on that gargantuan stage and trying to switch out a guitar or something in total blackness.
Oh, I know.
You know, like
You better know where everything is, man.
yeah, trying to avoid the
You're gonna
pedal
end up
board,
on your
trying to,
ass.
that's my point. You know,
Yeah.
and in my very first interview, I was told the different meanings of the flashlights
Oh yeah.
and shit, the mag lights that you guys use, you know, so
Yep.
like people in the back, you know, I definitely had the guy explain that, you know, what's up with the flashing in the back and all that. Well, that's how you guys are communicating,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is via the flashlights, you know, or to security or to the sound guy or the lighting engineer,
Yep.
you know, and all that shit. So, hey, this is what's going on, yada, yada, yada,
Yep.
you know,
It's
yeah.
got to, yeah, there's all kinds of little, it's funny though, the amount of language that is used that you don't think about via, like you said, you know, you got the lights, you know, blinking the lights, start the show. Hey, we're ready to go. That kind of thing to, you know, the waving of the lights that where you're trying to explain to someone, something to somebody or showing somebody something on the floor. Maybe you're walking your artist out all the way up to hand signals. So it looks like you're calling a baseball game from back there or something, you know, and
Yep.
you're like, hey, can you hear this thing through, you know, I need to talk back or something. And somebody's like, cool, they just nod at you and then they go to pushing their buttons or doing whatever they're doing. And then they're reading that. Or if like I remember me and my buddy Brydog, I would look at him, like if I had to go grab something real quick that wasn't like right next to me, and I would just look at him and I'd be like, watch him, you know, and he'd be like on it. Or and he'd go take care of my thing while I took care of the other thing. And it was only just gonna be for a hot second. So you know, it's cool to think about that now. I never really paid much attention to that, but now that I think about it, we have our own little sign language kind of thing that we use. Yeah, good point. I didn't think about that till now.
And you guys have an unspoken uniform. If you think about it,
Yes,
the black,
yes, we do. The
like
black,
always in black, you know, because you guys don't want to be, you know, seen by the crowd when the
right,
band is on stage, because then their focus is taken away from the band. So
right.
it's always like all black, you know, shit like that, you know, baseball
Mm-hmm.
caps, you know, whatnot, keep
Yeah,
the hair out of the face. And yeah, it's just kind of cool because, you know, some people, you know, me being a photographer, I try and see everything that's going on.
Yep.
And so it's kind of cool to know something like they're talking to each other. I
Yep.
wonder what they're saying.
Yeah.
Then after doing enough shows and everything, kind of pick up on it. And you're just
Yep.
like, oh, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah. And you never know,
So,
you might find a situation where it's something innocuous or something to where it's like somebody's having an issue,
mm-hmm.
and you might, for whatever reason, you recognize what the issue is, and you can see that they're struggling. So you run over there and just go, try this. And it's something, for whatever reason, in that moment, they go, I didn't think about that. Blah, blah. They reconnect. Everything's fine. Everything's good. But you can, yeah. And like I said, whenever that situation happened with Art, and it's, that one thing going down, my stage left guitar tech came running over, and he's like, what's going on? He's carrying cables and things that I might need, just in his head. He heard the same thing I did. He's like, shit. So he grabs what he thinks might help, comes running back there to me, and he's ready to go to help me to get through that problem. And that's cool. And I've done that with the guys in various situations where if there's something they need. Like we had a situation in where we were. It was the last festival show we did in Brisbane, and something had happened, and like I'm communicating with Mark Morton, like via just kind of like we're talking, like looking at each other. You're reading each other's lips, and then we're like hand motions, doing this other stuff, and like, then you eventually, you finish your conversation. He goes back to playing or whatever. But it's just funny in that moment to have that situation with that little bit of sign language to help out, whatever's going on in the moment. That's cool. Yeah, I never gave it that much thought, but yeah, now that you mention it, that's true.
That's actually one thing I've learned about working with like the smaller gigs, and smaller venues and stuff. And the dude who told me that stuff used to run sound at the House of Blues in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's my business partner for
Nice.
Bloodlust Media. And so like it's kind of cool that we are able to, look back on that now, because now I see, now I do work backstage. Now I help manage stages and bands and make sure that everyone is set up correctly, and that everyone is in the landing area that, is supposed to be, and all that. And I'm like, well, now I definitely know what you guys are talking about. So, okay, this is kind of cool. Like you guys really do have your own language, that's apart from anyone else.
Oh yeah.
So
it is funny because you use it in so much common speak that you'll put it into something when you get home, or just tour speak in general. Like I'll come home saying some stupid saying that we said all the time, and everybody knew what it was. I'll say it home, and my girl looks at me and she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, never mind, I forgot where it was. You don't understand any of what I'm saying right now.
Man, I don't even have to do that with musical lingo. I can just say over in the holler and people look at me like, what?
Yeah.
Or over yonder, where I use the term cattywampus and stuff like that. People look at me like, what?
Yeah.
Caddy corner, diagonal, over there.
Where's that pub's just a hop, skip, and a jump that way, man.
Yeah. Or you said hot second earlier, which I thought was cool because I say hot minute.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I haven't seen you guys in a hot minute. And people are like, what the fuck does that mean? It's been a long time.
Oh yeah. It's been a long time. We have a thing that came from like the Vinnie side of things, where we would say one beer time, and that just means one more time.
Oh,
nice. So we would always say that. It's like, hey man, let me let's do this one beer time, we'll get out of here. And that's just kind of how it comes about. You just kind of create your own stuff. Hey pup.
Yeah, this is my shepherd, who isn't much of a shepherd, but she looks like a shepherd. I mean, she's 100% purebred, but she does not act like a shepherd.
She just doesn't like it. Yeah.
No,
I haven't had any dogs in a long time, man. Mine passed away when I was on tour, so I never.
I'm sorry, dude.
It's all right, man. I appreciate that, but I never was. After that happened, I was never apt to get another one. I was just like, I'm good. And I even told her, I was like, if you want one, you can have one, but it's your dog. I'm not doing this.
No, I feel that.
Yeah.
You get too attached, man. Like they are a part of your family. They are a giant fur kid.
Yeah.
So I definitely get it. I don't know what I'm gonna do when this one goes. She's 3 right now, and shepherds aren't known for having long lifespans. Right. So,
well, hopefully she gets a good one and a long one and no problems and all that other stuff. So that'll be awesome.
I know. she's spoiled.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
Shit, I've taken up a lot of your time, dude.
That's all right.
I
I've
mean,
enjoyed it, man.
well, I do want to thank you for hopping on. I definitely want to catch you again after your coming tour is done, just to hear more stories, and
Sure.
maybe if I see you around this area, Michigan area, sometime Chicago,
Yep.
hit me up. I'll definitely come and try and see you guys
Cool.
and shit, and maybe I'll get the awesome opportunity of showing the crowd what you actually do
Right.
from the back. I
All
mean,
right.
again, I know David has that covered, but it's still kind of cool when it's happening in the moment. Because David
Yeah.
can't record when it's in the moment because he's too busy trying to make sure shit doesn't go awry.
Yeah, this is true. Well, I'm sure we'll get something figured out and it'll be cool. And yeah, we'll be back up that direction during that tour. So that'll be awesome, man.
Hell yeah,
Looking forward
man.
to it.
Well, I thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I look forward to doing this again.
Sounds great, brother. Appreciate you. You have a good one, and
You
we'll
too.
talk again soon.
For sure. Don't get too drunk. Yeah.
Never.
Oh my kid. All right, later, dude.
Later on, brother.